Tonight on Province-Wide, a veteran shares his story. Lester Brown is Canada's last surviving black soldier who took part in D-Day, the racism he faced in the 40s, and his incredible story of survival.
I really thought that I wasn't coming back.
Canada's golden girl of boxing, Mandy Bugeaud, is back from the Pan Am Games and giving us the inside story of her big win. And we're unwrapping Ontario's newest museum, what it reveals about our past.
From CTV News, this is Province-Wide. Here now, CTV's Diane Vernile.
Good evening and welcome to Province-Wide. As the years pass, there are fewer veterans of the Second World War who are there to mark Remembrance Day. And among that group, there is now only one surviving Black Canadian who took part in the D-Day invasion. On the home front, Blacks who wanted to serve faced their own battle against discrimination. But World War II marked the first time that Canada's armed forces were integrated, with all races fighting side by side. Here's the story of one of those soldiers.
On Remembrance Day, Lester Brown, known as Bub to his friends, will suit up and attend an annual ceremony near his home in North Buxton.
We lay a poppy in memory of those that didn't make it home, you know, our fallen comrades.
The 90-year-old veteran lives just a few blocks away from where he grew up, in a southwestern Ontario community settled by former American slaves.
There was a house just between here and the next concession where I was born.
He shows us the schoolhouse where he quit after just grade 8, saying there was no point for a black person back in the 1930s to go any further.
We couldn't get a job. There was no incentive to go to school because when you got out of school, you still couldn't get a decent job.
Lester eventually found work as a porter with the CPR and remembers what life was like back then.
You know, in 1940, things were pretty bad around here for blacks, you know. The only one restaurant in Chatham that we were allowed to go in to eat, and I understand there was a restaurant in Dresden that said that he would rather close up than to serve blacks. Things were bad.
Lester says it's because of discrimination and limited opportunities that he didn't bother signing up when war broke out.
Well, that's why I didn't enlist, because I figured really that I didn't have that much to fight for. But after I got my Army call, I decided to make the best of it.
Being drafted at age 23, Lester found he was the lone black man during his basic training.
I was the only one.
But, much to his surprise, Lester says he was treated fairly by officers and fellow soldiers.
I had no problem, so I just felt like any other soldier.
It's a marked difference from World War I. Assistant Curator Spencer Alexander at the Buxton National Historic Site and Museum says in that battle, Black Canadians were segregated and limited to a non-combat role.
We're supposed to do like the trench digging and all the manual labor type things, but they ended up fighting with weapons.
During the Second World War, Black American troops still faced segregation. But in Canada, Lester began training with no restrictions and discovered that he was a good marksman.
I was a pretty good shot, and I enjoyed the training.
The young soldier was assigned to the Queen's Own Rifles and then shipped overseas to England in March of 1944. His first combat assignment would be the D-Day invasion at Normandy. Lester remembers hearing U.S. General Dwight Eisenhower give a speech.
He briefed the troops about 2 weeks before the invasion, and he told us what to expect. He said that it was going to be tough and there would be casualties.
As Lester waited for the battle, he prepared for the worst.
I really thought that I wasn't coming back.
He even wrote his mother, telling her to give away his suits.
And I told her to give my suits to Donna, my youngest sister, because I didn't think that I would need them anymore. So she told my sister, she says, I'll give you one, but she says, I have to keep one for Bub when he comes home. So she was a little more optimistic than I was.
Early on the morning of June 6th, Lester boarded a boat for the long-awaited massive invasion of Nazi-occupied France.
I remember going up on deck about 3 o'clock in the morning, just looking out, and I had a funny feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but I really thought that would be the end.
As his landing boat approached the shores of Normandy, Lester got ready to hit the ground.
This is Juno Beach.
He and 14,000 other young Canadians had to race across an open beach, trying to avoid the sweep of gunfire.
Well, we ran until we got out of the water, and then we scrambled up the beach. And when we got up, we regrouped.
Lester made it, and he and his platoon pushed on with orders to move south to the village of Bretteville.
This is this little town that we were supposed to take.
But while walking through a wheat field, his group was ambushed.
I was wounded in the knee, and while I was running to get on this tank to try to get back, I was hit with a bullet on the chin.
What happened next is a chance turn of events. Lester and another soldier raced for cover behind a tank.
We were both running to get on the same tank. And I beat him to the tank. I got up one side and he had to go around the other side. And when we got back behind the lines, I went to get off and I just looked over on the other side of the tank, and he was lying there with his head in his helmet. It was full of blood.
While Lester survived, making it back to a hospital in England, the other soldier didn't. Today he has those memories and a few mementos from the war. His Army paybook, an old wristwatch that still works.
That watch my mother sent to me overseas for Christmas in 1944.
A small kit he calls his housewife.
That's what I was issued, and that's what they called it.
Oh, it's a sewing kit.
Sewing kit.
Inside, there's still the original wool.
Because I could never stand a hole in my socks.
And his official release notice from service.
This is my Army discharge paper.
After serving his country, Lester returned home, got married, and started a family.
That's me. That's my wife. This is my oldest son, Lamont. This is my second son, Vernon. My daughter, Heather.
He resumed his job at the CPR. His wife now deceased, along with many of his fellow veterans, Lester Brown is now Canada's only surviving black soldier who saw action at Juno Beach. He says on Remembrance Day, he'll be thinking about the sacrifices of fallen comrades and reflecting on how life turned out for him.
Oh, I was lucky. There's no doubt about it.
Now, despite serving his country, Lester says that after the war, he went back to working as a train porter because it was the only work that he could find. After 26 years, though, he was promoted to conductor. He worked for the CPR until his retirement. Well, how would you like to be first to hear what we're working on during the week? Just go to Twitter and key in province-wide. Get your updates by computer or smartphone.
Still ahead, a Kitchener boxer packs a punch. Mandy Bujold wins gold at the Pan Am Games, but can she do the same at next year's Olympics? She sits down with us for an inside view. That's coming up on Province-Wide.